Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanjay Suresh, and I am a student studying microbiology at the University of New England. So today in my video, I'd like to talk about an interesting topic, which is how microbiology is related to disasters. So, what is disaster microbiology? Disaster microbiology is a study of how natural human-made disasters can lead to infections and how this can make us sick. This is something that not a lot of people might have thought about, but I really thought that this was an interesting topic, so I decided to make this video. So typically, for people who live in the South, we are more prone to hurricanes, we're more prone to floods. So when these disasters happen, how are we more prone to getting infected? How do these floods and these open waters and overcrowded pages make us more susceptible to get infections? So this is what disaster microbiology talks about. And in contrast with this, when we talk about traditional microbiology, we mainly study about the normal morphology of the bacteria. What's the pathogenesis? How does it cause disease? And what are the basic biological functions of each of these? This is mainly in a non-disastrous condition. So for example, children going to school, how do they get infected when everything is normal? So this is what traditional microbiology talks about. So what are some environmental factors that contribute to the spread of these infections? For example, in floods or fires or hurricanes, we tend to experience overcrowded populations. And in overcrowded populations, what that means is that, a bunch of people, they stay maybe either in a stadium or in a closed environment. So there's more direct contact amongst individuals, and there'll be lack of proper hygiene and lack of sanitizations, which could spread to infections such as Shigella, which is seen from human contact. When somebody has infected and they touch it with an infected hand, then you could get infected with this bacteria. Also, in cases such as floods, we are more prone to watery environments. For example, like when the flood ends or when we have severe floods, there's more stagnant water, and this causes breeding of different type of mosquitoes. Now, this may not be seen in the United States, but it could be seen in other underdeveloped areas. So as a result, there could be more breeding of mosquitoes, which could lead to dengue, chikungunya, malaria, etc. These are how certain environments can cause certain diseases, or even in moist areas, you could see more of the mosquito populations. Even in moist areas, there's so many different water-related microorganisms, such as gram-negative bacteria, etc. So, what are some of the bacteria that are commonly associated with disaster microbiology? So one is Vibrio cholera. Vibrio cholera is mainly seen through drinking contaminated water. So if the water is not properly sanitized and the water is infected, then you could get infected with this Vibrio cholera, which is a gram-negative, and this could lead to severe watery diarrhea, cramps, etc., abdominal pain, etc. Also, another important bacteria that could cause this is leptospirosis. So leptospirosis is another zoonotic infection, and this is mainly seen from infected urine of animals. For example, if we have dogs, cats, which have infected urine and they urinate in the public waters, and we get exposed to them through the contaminated wound, then we could get this leptospirosis. And also E. coli and Shigella because of overcrowded populations. So the next part that I'd like to talk about is what are the potential risks in flooded storms. So potential risks is mainly due to inhalation of spores, for example, aspergillosis, or direct contamination of open wounds. And if you're an immunocompromised patient, meaning that if you have a low CD4 count, then you might be susceptible to life-threatening infections such as aspergillosis, candidiasis, pneumocystis, cryptococcal meningitis. So, and all of these could mainly get spread. Mainly the aspergillosis is through inhalation. Candidiasis is through diabetes, etc. So if there's a flood, then the polluted air could cause these type of microorganisms to prevail, and you can get infected through these. The next thing I'd like to talk about is what are mycotoxins and how do they exacerbate the public health effects. So mycotoxins are toxins which are released from a fungi. And there are several fungus that are prevalent, for example, Candida, Pneumocystis, and Cryptococcus. And what these mycotoxins do is they can cause severe respiratory illnesses. They can trigger asthmatic attacks, and they could cause further infection in immunocompromised individuals. And they could also lead to neurological symptoms such as memory fog, memory loss, dizziness, etc. So coming to how disaster is related to mycology. First of all, if you don't know, mycology is the study of funguses. How is disaster related to mycology? So the scientific study of natural human, it's the scientific study of natural human disasters which alter the normal ecosystem of the fungi, and this can cause disease. So this is mainly caused, again, in skin lacerations, airborne infections, people who are maybe diabetic, high blood pressure, etc. So if you already have these predisposing factors and then you have a disaster in your local area, then you are more prone to getting these fungal infections. So that's what mycology talks about. And then to wrap up my video, I'd like to talk about some research dilemmas and ethical considerations that I have while I was reading one of these articles that I have encountered. So one of the dilemmas in research is the exploitation of vulnerability. For example, disaster victims, they suffer from a social structural stressor. They may have wrong perceptions of this invasive microbiology, and they may think that it's just a simple humanitarian aid. The other thing, which is very important that I wanted to discuss, is the informed consent. So in conditions like disasters or hurricanes and floods, voluntary, autonomous, informed consent is compromised, because we already have people who are suffering from these disasters and who are hurt and who are traumatized. So it's very hard to get the consent from these type of people. And occasional hazards. So first responders, people who do first aid, or either microbiologists, they have a high risk of getting accidentally exposed while studying these microorganisms. So one important source that I found, other than my readings for the class, is the National Institute of Health. And this article mainly talks about the real-world laboratory biosafety in the undersourced disaster areas. It's mainly community-focused, and it's mainly community-focused, and solution must be prioritized to prevent these accidental exposures. I hope you like my video, and please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.